of people don't know the meaning of life. They feel they have no purpose. Why are we here? Is this a fluke? Is this a practical joke? Is this hell? What is this? But the ancestors told me that we come as souls, and we put on this deep-sea diving suit of the soul, which is a body that allows us to experience the material plane. We go into the very creation of the divine, and we experience it from different aspects. And then our soul communicates that back to the divine, which is why the divine knows all things. Because it's hearing continuously the communication of every soul experiencing its creation. So we upload, if you will, our experiences, our joys, our pain, our frustrations, our successes. And I always tell people, the universe is listening. And the ancestors made this very clear. Be clear about your communication, because if what you send is faulty communication, or filtered communication, you are not delivering the truth to the divine. You're delivering a perspective that is tainted. So you have to be very clear in your communication. Mystics used to say that when you're ill, you never say, I am sick or I feel sick. You say, my body feels sick. My body is in pain. You never say, I am, because you are a soul, and you're not. So that's miscommunication in a way, back to the divine, that I am sick. So what you're telling the divine is my entire being and every fabric of existence within me is ill. Rather than the truth, my body has pain today in the stomach. It's a different communication, but it's clearer. It's more precise. It's what divinity needs to hear. Right now, there's a great voice going up from the realm, and it's really corporations and things that are talking about the state of things. And divinity's hearing that too. So you have to be careful. You have to override that. You have to override that with projection. I think we can do it collectively in ritual. I think we can get together at these key points, pivotal moments, equinoxes and solstices, when the pulse of the earth is shifting. And we can come together in a group, no matter how small, 50, 500, 1,000, whatever it may be, and give energy out to purify the thought form around every city, around every field, to join hands and resonate energy, and tell the divine about all the wellness of our being. Be gracious, be thankful. I think that that's a powerful message. And if 100 of us do it today, and 1,000 tomorrow, and 10,000 next week, and 100,000 next year, we can shout down the voices that the divinity hears about money is the only thing that matters, profit is the only thing that matters, resources take as much as you please, don't worry about it, that's the future's problem. Right now we're going to just strip the forest and throw our trash into the water, don't worry about it. Those are voices that are being heard, and we need to be able to counter those voices. That's one of the things that the ancestors said. They look upon our world, we are their descendants, and they are looking at what we have done with their land that they knew in its pure state. And they're saying, please change that. In my book, Communing with the Ancestors, I have a couple of rituals that are designed to heal the land, to heal ourselves. I have one ritual which I think is very important, and I hope people will work with it. It's called soul mending. And I thought about this because we collectively, we can really cut people off in our lives. Sort of what happened between my dad and my son. And people can become estranged. And they think that, okay, I'm done with that person. Haven't seen that person in 20 years, good riddance. But the reality is you are not disconnected from that person. The Hawaiians call it the aqua cord. But the aqua cord will always connect you with anyone you've ever known and been in contact with until it's severed. But we don't sever it, we just hold it within and we generate feelings about that person. Even if you say, I don't want to talk about that person, I don't want to ever hear their name, you've just given that energy. And the aqua cord keeps you connected. So the ancestors said what you need to do to get over the human pettiness of all that is to talk soul to soul rather than person to person. You don't even ever have to pick up the phone and call that person. What you do is you sit down as a ritual in which you communicate with the soul of that personality and your soul, and the two souls talk together because they're the only ones that can resolve it. They're not mired in the muck. They're a higher vibration. So those two souls can come together and say, yeah, these two knuckleheads are never going to get it together. But why should that be a lifetime of bad energy? Why don't you and I as spiritual beings agree that this is over? Enough. Let us cut the apple cord and separate these people. And so I'm working with that ritual, and I found it very effective. And people have told me they found it very effective. So you might want to look into that if there's someone or something you're hanging on to that you don't think you are. These are all things that come from the ancestral realm. Now, reincarnation becomes the tricky thing.
What kind of effects do you find come forth after that?
I couldn't hear.
I'm sorry, what kind of effects do you find come forward after you perform that type of
What kind of effect happens?
Yeah, like between the two people, do they heal?
Well, I'm still waiting for feedback to see if people come back to me and say, well, I still think about them, but I don't feel connected.
Right.
I think that you can release somebody who doesn't know you've even done that.
Right.
And I think it's healthy. I haven't got enough feedback. The book's pretty new, it just came out. But that's an excellent question. I'm going to be trying to track that. I've done it to a couple of people, and I've not heard from them, but I feel that I can move on and go about my business. And when I do think of them, or someone brings up their name, I don't have a reaction to it anymore. Yeah, I don't have an emotional, I don't get in the stomach, or later on think about them again. It's almost just sort of gone. So I think that's good. Yeah.
How do souls determine whether they're going to reincarnate or if they're going to stay in the stomach?
This is where I was going. In some ways, we have to rethink a lot of what we have held on to. That's what I was told, and I had to release a lot to really understand the mechanism, Here's the thing the ancestors said to me. We are each of us a soul, which is really the true us, the eternal being that has known many lifetimes. We have a human consciousness contained within a body. That human consciousness is finite. It's not really us. Like, I'm not really Raven. I'm the soul playing the role of Raven right now. I liken it to, one of my favorite actors was Leonard Nimoy as Spock. So in the analogy, or the allegory, whichever it would be, Leonard Nimoy is the soul. Spock is the personality he projected. When Leonard Nimoy went home, i.e. the soul left the body, there was only Leonard Nimoy left. And he wasn't like Spock, but he was affected by Spock, influenced by Spock, sometimes felt like Spock. But Spock was only part of him. So the personality that we all believe ourselves to be right now is the character we have created for this particular lifetime. And then the ancestors said that they have bestowed upon us an elemental body to be a vessel for the soul and for this personality. Why? Well, what was passed to me is that the soul, this is a little tricky to follow, so let's see where we can go with this. The soul needs a complete education in order for it to function as it was meant to be on all realms. The soul belongs to a spiritual realm. In that spiritual realm, things operate differently. Let me give you an example. When you dream, you may be riding a car down the street, and that car will turn into a bicycle. What do you do in a dream when your car turns into a bicycle? Most of us start pedaling bike. We go with the shift, we go with the transition. Whereas when you leave here tonight, if your car happens to turn into a bicycle down the road, you're going to have major objections. You're just not going to go, oh. Because that reality is all about shift and transition and metaphor. That's the natural way a soul's mind works. But that doesn't work down here. The value that the soul has of coming into this educational arena is that here, if I want to build a chair or build that guitar, there is a way to do that. A consistent way. And if I follow that method, I end up with a guitar. In a dream, I could not build that guitar, could I? I may start with a piece of wood, and I'll end up riding an alligator down the river. Right? So I cannot create in cohesive ways in the spiritual dimension until I learn how to do it here. And when I learn how to do it here, my soul becomes part esoteric and part exoteric. It becomes part envisioned and part practical. And when I put them together, I'm a functioning being who is a spirit who can think in abstract ways, shift and flow, but I have the skills to manifest my desire and to help others. If I'm a spirit and I turn around to help another come through the material plane, if I don't understand the material plane and how it works, how can I be of help to one who's still in the body? I can't, unless I've learned already. That's what spirit guides are. They're beings who have learned how to take material reality, spiritual reality, and make them one. As above, so below, psychiatrists will tell you have a conscious mind and a subconscious mind. It's the same thing. They function differently, but when they work together, things go well. When they don't, things don't go so well. And that's one of the things the ancestors were talking about, is the education of the soul here. So, when you talk about reincarnation, who is reincarnating? The soul. The soul is reincarnating. The persona is not. Now that scares a lot of people, because they think they're the persona. So they think they're going to die, but they don't. They are among the dead. We've given names to these realms. Until they're released from the realm of the dead, because no one remembers them. They slip then into the ancestral realm, which is another realm. You might call it the Summerland, you might call it Valhalla, or heaven, or whatever. These are the realms in which the beings continue to exist. Now, the ancestors, knowing that souls need bodies, this is what was passed to me. And this is overly simplistic, but I'll lay it out. They know a soul needs a body in order to come and complete its education. The ancestors need a living agent in the river of bloodline to accomplish what your lineage was meant to accomplish. What do I mean by that? Here's what I mean. Each of us, as we grew up, we wanted to be something. We wanted to accomplish something. So we had a mission. You know, we may or may not have ever done that, but we had a mission. So does each lineage bloodline. There's actually an ancestral mission they're trying to accomplish. They need a living agent in order to do that. Each of us is that agent of that bloodline lineage. So they're in a situation where they say to the soul, again, oversimplistic, they say, hey, I'll strike a deal with you. I know you need a body. I need a persona. So I will, from the elemental realm, earth, air, fire, and water, I will create a vessel. So they start moving that energy, which will cause a thought to become a thing, us to have a body. And the soul comes into that process, enters into the energy, and the ancestors have a body, have a soul, and then they put the persona in, which is a projection from the ancestral realm. Each of us now, in the personas we're using, are actually projected from the ancestral realm. That's why they still communicate with us, because we're connected to that line. They can help us in ways the dead can't, because the dead are still who they were when they died. This is one thing that always surprises me. People think that the dead become instantly enlightened. No, they're still Dumbo Uncle Joe on the other side. Until the process of educating Joe and having him become an ancestor begins to take place. You don't change from one moment to another. You don't die and become an enlightened being. It's just not the way it works. It'd be great if you did, but we're still in the process of evolution. And the beauty of the pagan view, to me, is that the universe, or let's call it the divine, or whatever we want to call it, the divine has no plans for our destruction. It only has plans for our successful spiritual evolution. How can it be any other way? It doesn't make sense. Now, there are some religions, and it would be indiscreet to name them, Christianity, that has a view that you have one lifetime, 80, 90 years, whatever you get. And in that one lifetime, you have to get it right. And if you don't, there's severe consequences. You know? And I don't know, I look at that and I have often said to people that hold to that, if that is your view of what, let's use the word God, if that is what your view of God is like, I think you guys met God on a bad day. Because that's not what he's like. Now, you and I have good and bad days. If someone met us on our worst day, they might project a whole religion around and think we were a pretty bad character. But it makes more sense to me that that which created the universe and also created us, passed its essence into us, would certainly want that flame to burn brightly and to achieve. Time-wise? Time-wise, could you bring me some water? Bring me some water.
10 minutes.
Where were I? That the divinity would certainly want that flame to grow and to return, or to become what it was meant to be. Now, I always look at it this way, you know, I have 3 daughters, and I love my daughters, and I can't imagine anything they can do that would make me want them to suffer forever.
And then I have to say, what about me?
You chose to suffer because you married me. Sorry, I swallowed that down there, but give me a moment. That's the downside of the physical body we were given. It's not exactly constructed in the best way. Like, I always thought it was odd that our nose is above our mouth, because your nose tends to drain. It should be below, it should be down here on the chin. So that when it drains, it doesn't go in your mouth. And when you sneeze, it's away from your mouth. And before you put something in your mouth that tastes bad, your chin has already smelled it before you get there. So I would reconstruct that. So I would also change the windpipe that when you drink, you choke. So there's a couple of imperfections that need to be fixed. So the idea is that the elemental body that we have, this body is made up of the elements. And when the life force is withdrawn from it, it decays and goes back into the elements, therefore showing you it is an elemental being. The thing is that most people don't understand is it's a separate consciousness from us. We don't realize that. It's an actual being. And that actual being communicates to us all the time. It says, I'm hungry, I'm tired, I'm cold, I'm hot. And it wants you to do something about it. Have you ever sat and thought about, well, should I do this? I wonder if I should go there, maybe I should go there. Who are you talking to? There's more than one of you in there. There's a persona, there's an elemental being, and there's your soul. And they all communicate with each other. I wish I had my PowerPoint presentation, because the whole teaching is summed up in the lover's card. with the angel on top, with its hands over each head of the two humans below, bestowing equally blessings and attention and communication and enlightenment. The two beings below are chained through their own device. Look at the Waiter Right tarot because it's the original model. Some of the modern ones artists have changed. But in the original, the woman is looking up at the soul. The man is looking at the woman. Because in the communication metaphysically, the body representing the female is directly communicating to the soul. So that's a direct communication because the soul needed that body. The human consciousness is a secondary thing to the soul and the body. It's having its own experience, but it's only one of three, so it is not the dominant force. And that card's showing you, this is not the dominant force. If you make the man in the image of the card the dominant force, you demean the power of the soul and the power of the body because you switched it over to a persona, which is only a projection. So the idea is to always communicate with the soul. So a lot of the rituals I have in the book are about that, stepping back and communicating with the soul and understanding that this is temporary, very temporary. People wonder about why we choose different lineages. Like, why did we come into a German family or a French family or a mixed family? Why did we choose female? Why did we choose male? What was that all about? These are all things that the soul, according to the teachings, gets a glimpse of what life would be. And it often looks back to the bloodlines it's already had lives in. And maybe it figures, I recognize that line as a German, as an ancient Egyptian, maybe I like that. I come back, and even though I'm Caucasian living in America, I'm drawn to Egyptian ancient religion. It's a soul memory. So you see, the soul actually is the thing we need to be dealing with. By analogy, let me give you an idea of the importance. You were once 5 years old, you were once 10, 15, 20, 25, 30, on up. You looked different at those times, right? Things were important to you in different ways than they are now. Maybe people called you by different names, had a nickname for you. You are no longer 5 or 10 or 15 or 20 or 35. You're no longer any one of those individual beings. But you are the culmination of them all. So you, by analogy, are the soul who can remember having been 10, i.e. another life, 20, 25, 30, i.e. many lives I've lived. But the soul never says, well, I am not the one. The soul knows that it is the one. It is the one that continues and moves on. The ancestors are here to help the soul move forward and to teach the persona. The persona is also educated by the ancestors. The reason you would want to communicate with the ancestors is they have collectively experienced everything possible. Things that you will never experience in this life, some things that you will. They've already lived it. They know the solutions. They know how to fix it. Even an illness, you can draw upon your ancestors on the DNA level. And I have done this. And you can say to the ancestors, I reject the pattern of what I inherited, the predisposition, whatever that was, to this illness. I reject that, and I call upon my ancestors to strengthen the DNA within me that creates my cells that are generated by those who survived this. See? And so what happens is you're communicating directly to the body and to the soul and to the persona. The body always wants to please you, and it will right away go and start messing with the DNA. The persona is the only tricky one, because the persona gets in the way and argues us out of things we shouldn't do. That's how you get involved in addiction, because you're no longer listening to the practicality of the persona. You've allowed the persona to master all three bodies. Once you are in harmony with soul and body, persona, then random occurrence disappears from your life. That's a biggie. Random occurrence disappears from your life. Ways will open. You will know you're walking in meaningful ways. You will remember what purpose is. We all have it. And the last thing, I think I'm running out of time, the last thing I want to really instill, and I did this earlier if you were here, you'll remember this one, but I think it's important, worth repeating. Every one of us on this planet is vital. You have more meaning and power than you realize. Governments are afraid of you because of that power. So they try to convince you that you can't change anything on your own. Which is not true. If you look at any great change that's ever taken place on this planet, there's usually one person who, either by themselves or inspiring others, made a huge change and a significant change. Why? The reason is that you were created, you and I, by that which created the entire universe. And it cast its creative spark into you as a soul. And that tiny little spark came from the divine. It's so powerful and so vital. If you apply it, you can change the world. You can certainly change your world, but you can change the world. And when we come together as a people, as pagans, as witches, as Wiccans, as druids, as heathens, whatever, and we join those bits of light together, we can become a spotlight. We can change. And I mentioned at the other one talk, I believe that souls travel in tribes. And these tribes are kin. And they come at pivotal moments in time. This is a pivotal moment in time. We have all come back to turn the tide. To make the changes that they tell us cannot be made. To fix the things they tell us cannot be fixed. And if we stand together and we draw upon that divine spark within us, there is nothing that is not impossible. Everything becomes possible. So remember that when you go out and about, that your voice, your presence, how you make people feel, what you do with your life, what you choose not to do with your life is your power. Never let anyone take that from you. So in closing, I just want to express that, everywhere I go as an author, which is a cool thing to be able to do, see people all over the country. I look out at the eyes that are looking back at me. And all of the faces are different from everywhere I go in this country. The souls looking at me, the eyes that are looking at me are the same people, the same souls that have come time and time again to make huge change. So I want to thank you all for coming back as souls, embracing these bodies and honoring these personas, so that together as pagans, and all that falls under that, together we join and we turn the tide. Thank you.